Let's go for if it goes front. Want this to come? Just
take your seats and close the door so that we can start. Today, I have on my right hand side Mr. Christopher Foley, who is the CEO of Nersa.
Can you tell them?
Can you assist there and close the door, please? On my right hand side, I have Mr. Christopher Foley, who is the CEO as well as the member of the electricity subcommittee at Nersa. On my immediate left, I have Mr. Musufukile Mkize, who is the full-time regulator member primarily responsible for petroleum pipelines at Nersa. Also the member of the electricity subcommittee. On my far left, I have Mr. Kumbulani Sibanda, who is the energy regulator member as well as the member of the electricity subcommittee. Ladies and gentlemen, today's hearing is governed by the Nersa rules for public hearings, which I am going to summarize to you. The presenters that are going to give presentations today will be required to do so under oath, and only the members of the panel that are allowed to ask questions to the presenters. However, if there is a member of the public here who has an issue to clarify from the presenter, you can write it down in a piece of paper and hand it over to Mr. Waltama Gunda, who's standing over there. He will hand over that piece of paper to us and we'll decide how to ask the question or the clarity that you are seeking from the presenter. Should the presenters present information or consider certain information to be confidential, please indicate so to the members of the panel, who will then decide whether or not we need to clear the room so that we can hear the confidential information. The recording of today's hearing is done through the audio system, and that will be the official record of these hearings. Please also note that these public hearings, as well as the two applications filed by ESCOM, were published in the various newspapers, national as well as provincial newspapers, as well as radio stations. We have also posted them in our website, and we have notified members of the public through our social media platforms about these hearings. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to switch off your cell phones or keep them on silent mode so that they do not interrupt us or disturb the presenters. I would like to also introduce other members of the energy regulator. One member stepped outside, so I was just waiting so that he can come back. Ladies and gentlemen, from the members of the energy regulator who are here today with us, we have Ms. Malebu Nkomo, who is the Deputy Chairperson of Nersa and the member of the Piped Gas Subcommittee. We also have Mr. Yusuf Adam, who is also the member of the Energy Regulator. He is also here with us as the final decisions of these applications will be taken by the entire members of the Energy Regulator. We allocated 15 minutes for the presenters to do their presentations, with the exception of the applicant, which is ESCOM, which will present the two applications and make sure that they clarify even some of the issues that we have requested them in the previous hearings. So we've allocated more time so that the members of the public that are here and other stakeholders can benefit from the details of the applications that we are assessing. At this stage, I would like to call upon ESCOM to give us the presentation. I've got the name of Mr. Khalil Kasim for ESCOM. Whilst Mr. Kasim is coming forward, I would like to please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you're going to present before this panel will be the truth and the whole truth?
I do, Chair.
Please state your name and your designation at ESCOM.
The Honorable Corporate Specialist, Finance and Economic Regulation.
Thank you very much. Morning, Dion. Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you're going to present before this panel will be the truth and the whole truth?
I do, Chair.
Please state your name and your designation at ESCOM.
I'm Dion Kumarwadi, Senior Manager at District Pricing.
All right, thank you very much. Before you start, Mr. Kasim, I'm just reminded about the evacuation procedures. I would like us to get the person who's going to inform us about the evacuation procedures.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Moses Mkhefe. I'm the security manager of Royal Hotel. First of all, before I start, let me just take this opportunity to welcome you all. You are all welcome. Feel free and enjoy your meeting. I would like to make the first announcement regarding our bathrooms, that the gents are going to use this bathroom as you come in. The second door is for the gents, and the ladies as you walk. So the announcement will be made, and when we leave this building, we don't run, we don't rush, we just walk to avoid causing more incidents that can result into becoming problems. So we have, in case of emergency again, we have doctors in house. There is a medical center across next to our HPC, and we've got all the numbers to address.
Members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen, I'll go through the summary of the RCA application and get into the MYPD 4. This is the 5th year regulatory clearing account application for the financial year 2017-18, which was submitted on the 12th of September financial year, and thereafter the equal amounts are embedded in the revenue requirement to recover the 32 million rand. Eskom's year 5 on regulatory clearing account application was based, and similar to our previous submissions, we applied the methodology and made the submission to the regulator, and effectively what you will see in our application that the significant driver for year 5 is basically linked to your revenue requirement, which is linked to the sales volume variance in year 5 compared to what the decision was. And today when one of my colleagues talks about the sales, he'll go into details about our process of sales forecasting and the factors that go into it. So I think it will definitely highlight the aspects around the RCA as well, more importantly, the MYPD4. I think over and above that, other than the revenue variance, in the last year, in year 5, effectively on the cost side, there's a net reduction to the application with the bigger amounts into the negative amounts, which are effectively a refund of the costs that were awarded in the regional decision. And some of the big items are your coal cost variance, your environmental levy, including also your demands, and also the energy conservation scheme. There is a last component of 83 million that's relating to the decommissioning decision that was made in year 1 of the RCA of 830 million that is phased in over a 10-year period. So that's why the 83 million is included in this application. Chairperson, we've come to the end of our 1-year decision, which ends now in March. So we've made a 3-year application for MYPD4, and effectively the basis of that application is in terms of the latest MYPD methodology, and it forecasts your key assumptions, and ultimately, effectively, what is it going to cost Eskom to produce electricity over the next 3 years? And ultimately, effectively, sales demand, what is it going to cost Eskom to produce electricity over the next 3 years? And ultimately, effectively, sales demand, what is it going to cost Eskom to produce electricity over the next 3 years? And ultimately, effectively, sales demand, the methodology, and all those components as I've highlighted, the operating costs together with the return on assets and depreciation to give you the revenue, which is divided by this volume assumption to get a cents per kilowatt. When you compare it to the previous cents per kilowatt to get the adjustment in terms of the price application, which for MYPD4 equates to 15% for the next 3 years. The summary of that ultimately culminates into a revenue requirement of 763 billion rand over the next 3 years. And today's focus, Chair, we will ask the question around cost reflectivity and why do we say that as Eskom. And the first colleague, Mr. Yubey, will deal with that issue. And then, Chair, we'll go into the detailed sales by Malelo and how we do our sales forecasting process. Mr. Conradi will then deal with tariffs, protection of the poor, and then conclude our presentation with Kabelo dealing with the economic impacts. So if I may now call up Mr. Yubey. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Chair, we've for the last 3 weeks seen a lot of detail about various cost components, assets and so on. This presentation will attempt to take a step back and give a bit of a bigger picture perspective on the whole thing. So to put the whole price path where it's been and where it seems to go into a larger perspective. So Chair, we'll start with referencing Nersa's we'll start by referencing Nersa's estimate of the future price path as it published it in its reasons for decision in June 2009. And at that stage, Eskom, now here's the graph straight from the Nersa reasons for decision. It's a bit complicated at first glance, and Chief, if I'll just take a moment to orientate the audience to the graph. We were at that point at the start of this financial year, where the pointer is now, and Nersa just made a determination for the price to establish the price at that level for this financial year of 2009-10. And of course the society wanted to know where's the price going to go from here. Eskom had just been awarded the build program, and they wanted to have an idea of, they knew that the price was not cost reflective or at a level to enable Eskom to execute the build program, and they wanted some indication. So Nersa published this, and they said, this is, on the left-hand scale is the price in constant rands of 2009. And Nersa said, well, there are two boundaries to this price code. They model the upper boundary, there's the upper boundary, plateauing at 80 cents a kilowatt hour, there's 80 cents a kilowatt hour. And the reason it plateaued, as it was explained in Nersa's reasons for decision, was because it was assumed at that point it would be cost reflective, and therefore price increases going forward would be at the rate of inflation, more or less. The lower boundary is this curve here, which crossed, which by 2013-14 would already have been at about 65, but clearly not yet at the plateau point of cost reflectivity. In order to achieve this upper boundary, Nersa modeled these percentage increases that you see there, nominal annual increases. So the upper boundary required 60% increase, a 60% increase, a 30% increase, and then inflation. Whereas to get the lower boundary, it required 30%, 30%, 30%, 30%, and of course something more beyond that because this was not yet cost effective. So what we did with this is we just put it in an Excel spreadsheet. The Nersa model ended there, but with the information Nersa provided in their reasons for decision, it was possible to some degree of accuracy estimate the cost savings that Nersa had assumed from this upper boundary, and therefore to calculate the plateau point for the lower boundary, the point at which cost reflectivity would be achieved given the assumption of some cost savings and so on. So with that, so we used the opportunity to extend it in 2024. So with that background, let's now have a look at what happened since then. So MYPD 2 was then the next application that was lodged. It was an application for 35, 35, and 35% increase by Eskom. And what happened was a decision of 25, 25, 25, which took the actual price to that level, where the point is. Then from that starting point, MYPD 3 was lodged, application of 16, 16 for 5 years, but the decision was for 8, so the end result ended there. There was a bit of a blip there because of the RCA for MYPD 2 and the RCA for the first year of MYPD 3, but with no RCAs being liquidated in the 5th year, the price, as you recall, with a 2% nominal increase, actually reduced in real terms by about 4%. So there's the price reduction in the 5th year. And then from that starting point, we lodged the 1-year application, which was that one, but the decision was private. In each of the revenue application documents is clarified that once cost of activity was achieved, the price would from that point roughly move at the rate of inflation, and would plateau at constant currency terms. So now that was just a bit of history, but now to put this in context of today, so a little bit of benchmarking, because this was 10 years ago, so if we convert this to 2018 19 rands, we find that the upper boundary, using Stats ISO official inflation rates, since 2009, the upper boundary translates to about 135 cents, the bottom boundary 114 cents, and at 13.50 to the dollar, just assuming that for the exchange rate, 10 cents US dollar cents per kilowatt hour for the upper boundary, and 8.5 US cents per kilowatt hour for the bottom boundary. Where does that put us relative to other stakeholders' opinions? Well, let's start with BUSA and EIG. You might recall, Chair, that for MYPD 3, when Nersa conducted the public hearings here around about January 2013, both of those entities had appointed consultants, independent consultants, to build financial models of Eskom and to analyze Eskom's MYPD3 application with financial analysis on those models. We assisted them, they approached us, and we assisted them over a period of 8 months to have functioning models. And then they, at the public hearing, both of them proposed a price part, not at 16% as Eskom applied for, but roughly 11% per annum, which would have taken the price to about the bottom boundary. This is bottom boundary. BUSA published a price path as part of their application that ended at 102 cents, but that was in 2017-18 rand, so just inflating that by 1 year to get to the point where we are now. It's about 108 cents, just below the bottom boundary. EIG similarly proposed a price path that in today's money ends in the range of 104 to 118 cents. So from just below to just above the bottom boundary. We also see that the IRP corroborates with this level, and we'll have a look at the IRP in a moment. And of course, compared to that, Eskom's current average price is about 89 cents or about 6.5 US cents a kilowatt hour. So, Chair, if we just compare this to between the 4 just for a moment, it's a simplistic comparative analysis, Chair, but it is being used. We see many stakeholders refer to bid window 4, and they say, well, we understand that that might be your cost Eskom, but we have cheaper alternatives, so consumers don't have to pay that anymore. They have to switch to these alternatives. So just looking at bid window 4, if it is assumed that the entire bid window would have been able to produce electricity in this year at their full capacity, full output, then the volume weighted average price of bid window 4 would be 90 cents a kilowatt hour. But that is at the generator, so you still have to factor in line losses to get it to the end consumer, because this graph is based on the volumes at the end consumer. So you still have to deduct about 9.5% of line losses, which pushes the price per unit up to just under 100 cents a kilowatt hour, and then you still have to factor in the system reserve margin, which adds at least 10%, which is that blue, and then you have to add in distribution and transmission costs, and the end result is about 140 cents, which that would have been the system average price if the entire system consisted of the technologies of bid window 4. It's likely, of course, that future bid windows will have a slightly lower price than bid window 4, but on the other hand, as is explained here in the heading, you still have to add the incremental system cost for backup, storage, ancillary services and so on, which is required if you have high penetration of renewables, and which is not being factored in this calculation. So it's likely to come to more or less the same level, which is also confirmed by IRP. Here's the latest IRP graph from the draft IRP. This bottom scenario 1, is the so-called unconstrained scenario, consisting of mostly solar PV, wind and gas as backup, and one can see that that plateaus around 140 cents. It looks like 135, but of course this was in 2017 currency, so converted to 2018 it's about 140, which is the number that we saw on the previous slide also. And the low point is the lowest point of this entire graph of the lowest scenario is 116 cents. So if we put these three together on one slide, here's what we saw: the Nersa upper lower boundary, the three MYPDs. There's MYPD 4, the red. If we look at this area covered by Nersa's upper and lower cone, we see that virtually the entire IRP falls within that area, and it corroborates also with the window 4, which means that even over a 10-year period, Nersa's analysis in 2009 has turned out to be remarkably, commendably robust, even with changes in the industry that's been happening. It's still quite well. Some stakeholders are aware, and of course they've been saying it at the public hearings. They say that this price that Eskom is now, the 6.5 cents, they propose that it should increase only at the rate of inflation going forward. In other words, it remain constant in real terms or flat in real terms. And they say they can't tolerate higher. But if that was true, then clearly it makes the entire IRP just an academic exercise, because the low point of the IRP is above the point where Eskom's price will end up after the 3-year MYPD 4 cycle. There's another, we've seen this often, the World Bank. This is another external reference. This is the World Bank's analysis of 39 African utilities. The orange bar is the cost portion of every country's electricity tariff, the OPEX cost, operational cost, and the green portion is the CAPEX portion of the electricity tariff. Here's South Africa, or Eskom. It's a utility-based view, so when they say tariff, they actually mean Eskom. They put Eskom at the third lowest cost in the continent, and these little circles represent the price. And you can see that at about 6 cents, there's 6 cents on their scale, it puts up Eskom equal to the lowest 4 other utilities on the continent. But the point I make in the document is that with the exception of Seychelles and Uganda, none of these other utilities are selling electricity at a price that covers their cost, and therefore they're all in financial distress and progressively more and more unable to maintain their systems, to expand their systems in order to provide reliable electricity, and heading of course also into severe financial distress, which is an inevitable outcome if your cost is here but your price is way below that. They do make the point, so for Eskom they say the true cost is about 11 US cents on their scale. And they make the point that with cost efficiencies, it might be able to get back to about 10 cents. So they call this gap from the price to the actual cost. They call that hidden cost. It's hidden from the consumer, and we'll get to that further in a moment. Just using their graph, we turned it 90 degrees just to get the price scale upright. And if here's the graph we saw earlier. There's Eskom's MYPD 4 line inside Nersa's cone. And if you extend that cone across the IRP, across the World Bank report, you see that they all corroborate one another. The World Bank price after efficiency gains land up just at the top edge of Nersa's forward price path, as was calculated. And of course that is with efficiency gains, and they mentioned this also in the analysis of the so-called hidden cost. So when they analyze that hidden cost, that gap between the price and the full cost, they make the point that 81% of that gap is due to underpricing. 15% they say is opportunity for efficiency gain, but as we saw on Friday in the last grade, there if transmission distribution indicated that the World Bank had made a data error in the calculation of the network. They used about 1/5 of Eskom's network in calculating optimum staffing levels. So clearly the assumption of staffing optimization is out by orders of magnitude, and similarly there was a mistake in the generation calculation, which we'll deal with in a later presentation. All of this clearly has an impact on the balance sheet. If your price is down here, but your costs are somewhere between these two lines, then obviously you're going to have to borrow money to cover your costs that are at least at this level, when your price is at this level. Now, just for the year that we are in, this gap between the current price of about 90 cents and that minimum boundary, the bottom boundary of Nersa's code, that equates to 39 billion after tax, just for the year that we are in. After tax means that the amount of missing revenue is greater than 39, but for this analysis we assumed Eskom would pay 28% company tax if they had achieved that revenue level. So after tax, 39 billion. And of course this didn't just apply for the 1 year, it applied over the period, and just measuring back from the start here of this MYPD 2 cycle, this missing revenue after tax equates to 272 billion of missing revenue. Now, as is communicated with all three MYPs consistently landing more or less in the middle of Nersa's cone, Eskom's costs are not at this bottom boundary, they're more like in the middle. So if we calculate this cone, this missing revenue up to the middle, it's about 340 billion of missing revenue over the last 7 odd years. That equates to 68% of Eskom's liabilities at 31 March 2018. Eskom's debt ratio, instead of 75%, it could have been 25% now, if it had had this revenue. And even if it had paid for each of these 7 years 10 billion per annum dividend to the shareholder, its debt ratio could have been 35%. Not 75. Standalone investment grade credit rating requires the ratio of debt to be under 55%. So this missing revenue of about 340 billion over the last 7 years, that is the main cause of Eskom's high debt. And it's in effect an electricity price subsidy which has been funded through Eskom's balance sheet. Now it doesn't end there, because with the price gradually over 3 years migrating from where it is now to this level at which it will cover the prudent and efficient cost, Eskom will continue to have to borrow to fill that gap, and that's why Eskom's revenue application document indicates that the debt will increase by more than 100 billion over the period, even with this 15% per annum times 3 price increase application. And at that point, the debt will then stabilize, because Eskom wouldn't have to borrow to fund that gap any further. Would be in a position to start redeeming the debt principal and the interest. Of course, cost efficiency remains a crucial issue, but it should be viewed in the total context. Just to illustrate, for this example, just use 15 billion. It's beyond plausible as a cost reduction on the income statement. It's more than any previous analysis by internal and external parties have calculated to be plausible. But just to illustrate what even a 15 billion income statement further efficiency gain on top of what's been achieved already would result in. It would have the effect of reducing the price from the 124, which is the midpoint of the cone between the lower and upper boundary, to around about 116 cents. So it would reduce it from the midpoint to the bottom boundary. 116, well actually the bottom boundary as I indicated earlier is 114 cents. So the price would still wind up above the bottom boundary. So point being, Chair, that any potential future efficiency gains cannot be an argument against increasing the price from where it is now to at least the bottom boundary, because those future efficiency gains might just cause the cost reflectivity level to land up towards the middle or maybe closer towards the bottom of that Nersa cone. So, Chair, the main cause of the required price increase from where we are now up to that level is not as is the popular narrative because Eskom's cost is increasing. That's not the main cause of this increase, of this slope. The main cause of this slope being required is because the existing price subsidy is being phased out. Now, of course, that does not include subsidization of specific customer categories in future. As we've indicated in a number of previous presentations, that indigent and poor people and certain vulnerable industries, there will always be merit and opportunity if it's government policy to subsidize those. So, Chair, just to conclude, electricity is a highly capital and asset-intensive industry with high fixed and high sunk cost that make up more than 75% of the cost. So the main cost driver for the price of electricity is the assets being operated. Now, if we look at assets, Eskom of 2018 is essentially the same as the Eskom of 2009, it's just larger. The same power stations are operating today plus 6,000 megawatts of additional 6,000 megawatts of additional capacity. And if you add in return to service stations, it's about 10,000 megawatts. There's a further construction program underway for a further 6,000 megawatts of capacity. The same network exists today, plus 36,000 kilometer more lines compared to 10 years ago. The same customer base exists today, plus nearly 2 million more customers compared to 10 years ago. So there's no reason that the forward price path as estimated by Nersa in 2009 would be any lower in 2018. For the lower boundary of the forward price path, Nersa stipulated a number of conditions to be fulfilled, of which virtually none has happened. And in addition, Nersa did not anticipate or price in the cost increases due to the renewable energy IPP program bid window 123. Which we know came at quite a high price and is now part of Eskom's cost base. Notwithstanding absorbing these issues, Eskom's required price by 2024 is still around midway between the upper and the lower boundaries of the forward price path. And as we saw, very competitive with even the lowest cost price scenario of the IRP. And further efficiency gains might at most reduce the level at which the price is required to migrate by about 6%. So, just final slide. So while Eskom has not been perfect regarding fuel cost, operational cost, capital expenditure, technical performance, etc., objective analysis indicates that the debt situation, Eskom's current debt situation, is mainly, more than 80%, a function of having had to take responsibility for the build program without the electricity price responding as was required. Even with the price path at the lower boundary of Nersa's forward price path, Eskom's debt ratio would have been around 35% today. And it would have been a solid investment grade, not requiring any government guarantees to access capital. Phasing out of the overall price subsidy does not preclude subsidization of specific targeted customer categories through direct, targeted and transparent subsidies. So a fair revenue for Eskom does not dictate the price to poor people in South Africa or to certain vulnerable industries. Therefore, these two propositions can be true at the same time. Eskom needs to receive enough revenue to be sustainable, thus to meet its debt commitments and cover all prudent and efficient costs. And B, poor people and vulnerable industries could still be protected, which could include government-funded production and consumption subsidies, but that is of course a matter of government policy. However, Chair, final point, the model of Eskom accumulating the effect of underpricing on its balance sheet as debt is unsustainable. and it has reached its limit. It is crucial for the sake of Eskom and South Africa that this be rectified urgently. This cannot be delayed beyond MYPD4. Thank you, Jim. I hand over to my colleague.
Thank you, Mr. Hubert. I hope that we will, yes, I hope that we will be able to at least pick up the pace. We've already taken 35 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I will do my best to pick up the pace. Welcome, everyone. As I said before, my name is Umalelo, and I'll be dealing with the sales forecasting. There's two, I think, very key things that I want to address by the time I finish the presentation. One, there is the comment by the stakeholders that our forecast has been wrong. And secondly, there's also a comment that we're being optimistic, very optimistic, in terms of what's happening in the market. So I need to address those two things, and hopefully by the time I'm finished, I will have. So in essence, our process or our forecast is done by 16 people. It's done over a period of 9 months. Each forecast is built from scratch. So it's not a case that we go to an Excel spreadsheet, we look what happened last year, we take 1.5%, multiply that, and then we get a forecast. We start each forecast from scratch. It's also based by what the customers say, and obviously in terms of production, looking ahead, what they foresee happening in their plant. Approximately 80% of our sales come from 3 sectors, and those sectors being municipalities, industrial, and mining customers. So if you have any change in those 3 sectors, our forecast then is also impacted. When it comes to Unix, we look at their integrated development plans to see what is in those plans, and we cater for that. Residential, commercial, it's mainly influenced by weather conditions, what the GDP is forecasted to be. And what we do, any outliers are taken out from our forecast. Now, the process or the approach is a 5-step approach. There's a note on the right there that I want to start with, that this process has been proven to work. If you look at our historical information, starting 2006 up to year to date, we have a variance of about 0.6% from the budget in terms of actuals and budget. And I think that's a very good fit, right? Now, also the process I think that Nersa has allowed us to do in terms of revising our numbers closer to the application period helps us to submit the most realistic numbers. So this process we're still using, and the slide that we're looking at, all it says, we do a bottom-up approach. As I said, there's 80% of our sales from the 3-4 sectors. We do those sectors on an individual basis. Our key customer execs have engagements with people in those industries. We log those interactions, and on a regular basis, it's not a one-stop approach. On a regular basis, we have that interaction in case things changes within the customers. The rest of the other sectors are then grouped to give the total Eskom a forecast. And then what we do after that, after the key customer execs have given us the information, we then go back to the various provinces. We have engagements with various departments within Eskom just to check the validity of what was given to us. Those will be people like from planning, from pricing as well. On the local one, we then add the international forecast. International forecast follows a similar approach. We've got about 11 customers in that international base. And then when you add the 2, you end up with the total Eskom sales forecast. and then that is taken to our various governing bodies in terms of excos for sign-off. So what assumptions do we use in our budget? For one, we only include loads where budget quotes have been accepted. What does that mean? If somebody comes to us and says, look, I want to connect a new point, we then give them a quote to say it will cost you so much based on the line that's required. That is a feasibility quote. If the customer accepts that, then we go to a firmer quote, which is a budget quote, and they pay for that. So in terms of what we include in the budget, it is applications that have about an 80% certainty of happening. So it's not a case of everybody saying we might grow, and add that to the forecast. I think it's very important that you look at that point, that only budget quotes are included in the forecast. You'll see in the chart, we've taken account of the leap year. 1 day extra in the year, we're looking at about 500 gigawatt hours additional to our load. So you have those 2 years there. Average weather conditions are applied in the forecast. Unfortunately, we are unable to forecast the weather. It's something that's outside our control. So we just stick with average forecast. If you look at last year, when it was very warm, that kind of skews our numbers. But there's nothing we can do about that. Co-generation has been taken into account. There's 1 or 2 big customers who have their own self-generation. And then we have some of our customers doing maintenance during winter. So there's a substantial drop during that period. There's no tariff restructuring that's been taken into account. And the GDP forecast that has been used as part of the application are the numbers below, which is an external forecast. So in terms of the GDP assumptions, just to chart it, those are the numbers. 2017, 0.7, 1.2, 1.5, 1.7. I think the 1.5 has been revised down now. It does impact a few of our customers. We'll relook at that closer to the period of submitting the application. Those are the economic assumptions that we used, coming from the sources listed below. In terms of platinum price, aluminium, gold, and the exchange rate. Those who follow these indices, you will note that later there's significance in the growth in that area because in terms of energy usage, they're very low. So even though there could be a growth, but it's not in the places where they use most of the energy. This is the chart just shows where our consumption is and the number of customers that we have. I think one of our colleagues mentioned an additional 2 million customers. We're currently sitting just over 6 million, and during peak period, we're averaging about 17 terawatt hours in terms of energy volumes. So in terms of energy usage, that is a profile that we see over the years. Just to give some context, the line here is your gigawatt hour sales per year. The number at the top is year-on-year growth or decrease from the previous year. And then this line is your Eskom average tariff adjustments. Now, I think what's very significant here is that we don't see a correlation between price and what the volumes are doing. Okay. When I first put this up, somebody says, but when you got 34, there was a drop of 3.9%. But if you remember, that's a year as well when we had supply challenges. That's a year when the global economy crashed. If you go to the website and Google some of the prices of the metal, specifically around 2008, platinum crashed, aluminium crashed, and some of the ferrochrome industries crashed. So it was really not linked to price. And then the following year, we started to see a pickup, and we were leading up to the World Cup, right? And that continued up until the 2011. 2012, we had major upheavals in the platinum sector. I think people of this region are aware of what happened, I think in Marikana, were some labor issues around there. So even when the price or tariff adjustment was coming down, you still saw some decreases in terms of year to year. So in essence, I think that's what I want to leave as a takeaway on that note. Also in terms of municipalities, the same applies. There is no correlation when you look at price and what the volumes are doing. Major changes in this space are the results of also big customers closing behind the meter of the municipality, because we supply municipalities a bulk and then they supply to our customers, to their customers. You also have issues of some of our volumes being offset by co-generation in the space. And I think if you dig deep, even that co-generation, I've been trying to establish how can a co-generation to a municipality be cheaper than our generation. It seems there's other factors, it's not only price. Industrial, I've spoken about a lot about industrial. I've just added a few slides here just to look at the sales of the individual sector in terms of aluminium, iron and steel, and gold. This industry is really, really hurting. I think Sibanye is going through some industrial action as we speak. And then the colleagues in the platinum sector are going on some solidarity strike as well. So we're going to see major changes there. Mining, I've spoken to. Commercial, I think commercial is also a good point that says your price is not the only factor that talks to your volume. Commercial has been growing throughout the years. Remember the slide that I showed you before in terms of our makeup? We're growing this space. This is the service industry. These are your law firms, your offices. The only challenge is this is good growth, but in terms of what they're using, the volumes, they're not as big as what we're losing. So even though we're seeing some growth in this space, it's not making that much of a dent in our sales. Reasons for the slow growth, I think I've talked to most of these. Aluminium sector, mainly due to closure of large smelters, weak commodity prices, drop in the world demand of aluminium, increase in oil generation plant, ferro and steel industry, low local and global demand, commodity prices again, and then imports displacing our own local, due to being cheaper from China, thereby diminishing orders from industries local, downsizing and closures of customer plants. I've spoken a lot on the platinum sector. So in terms of what we initially submitted, those were the volumes right in the beginning. Remember what I said, the process starts in February, over 9 months. So when we have this view in February and you talk to some of our customers, they're very buoyant, they're very happy, the outlook is very optimistic. They promise that everything is going to be very nice and rosy. So those were the figures when we started. We have subsequently revised those figures with further information from our customers. As I said, this is not a once-off process, it's an interactive process. So our volumes have slightly come down, but the biggest drop, if you notice in our application, for our international customers, we had 16 terawatt hours due to 2 customers. Out of the 11 that I mentioned, we have dropped just under 4 terawatt hours, which has impacted our forecast. Those 2, one is a defaulting in terms of payment, and the other one is a contract that never materialized. So those are the latest numbers as we have them. That is the most realistic. There's no aspiration added to that number. In terms of risks to the forecast, these are just a few that we know of. New coal plant happening around the Mpumalanga area, customers own generations, some customers moving to Malaysia not because of price, but because of logistics. I think there's an example that we always make in the business. One of the companies has stated that it's more expensive to move their product from harbor to inland than from the product to move from China to our coast. So it only makes sense for them to relocate to cheaper areas. And then closures of smelters, opportunities per sector. You can, I think, go through that as well. And as I said, it's only budget quotes. It's applications that are greater than 10 MVA. Opportunities within the municipality. I've listened and heard in some of the hearings where some of the stakeholders are saying, in terms of municipality, we should be seeing 3% declines. I think let's compare notes. If there's some information that we're not aware of, let's sit down and compare notes, but what we know and what our key customer execs have engaged with in terms of those metros, this growth. One metro I know is really declining is Western Cape. Western Cape, in our forecast, we should be sitting at a year-on-year growth of -2%. But the rest, I think we also need to be in line and support in terms of whatever the President is doing, the initiatives. So we're still seeing some growth in those areas. Kind of uncertainty, upside, that is an optimistic view to say, for example, if temperatures are very favorable, we'll have more usage. The downside is the opposite of what we shared before. And even though our sales are stagnant and slow, I think it must be clear to everybody that we're not sitting on our laurels, we are doing something to stimulate the economy or get additional sales. It's covered by those 4 pillars. In terms of customers that are in distress, growing sales, projects under construction, we want to connect new customers as quickly as possible. And in conclusion, as I said, this is a realistic forecast, okay? It's not an Eskom forecast. It's a forecast that was done in collaboration with some of our big customers, so we've taken input from there. Growth is very slow and stagnant in some areas. I think it's taking lead from what's happening in the country. Majority of the growth is in the less intensive user space. And as I said, it's incorrect to attribute the slow growth only to price. Those are some.
Thank you, Chair. I think from trying to answer the questions that you've asked during the process, this slide links very much to what Leon has presented as well. Countries are moving. There is definitely, we want to move to cost-effective tariffs. You've seen that trend internationally, but the pace you move and the way you do it depends on the fiscal strength, the need to protect vulnerable sectors, and then also the relative sector competitiveness. The areas that utilities are looking at are on the industrial side, in our case mining as well, and then also towards the poor and initiatives and all of that. But what is important in what we've seen there is that the common thread there is that the state is significantly involved in determining those vulnerable sectors. And the type of support it needs to get so that it aligns with the national development policies, economic development policies of the country, and that you don't work against each other. South Africa specifically, I think even more so, for the fact that you've seen that we are not cost effective yet, you have to separate these two. You have to have an average increase, but then rather focus on specific vulnerable sectors to provide some sort of relief in terms of that. And Eskom is cognizant of that. I think one added complexity here that we've seen, you've heard it through the hearings, is the fact that the prices of municipalities to customers add the contribution to the municipal levies and rates. So there are big differences in those prices as well, and I think from a country perspective we need to look at that as well. And in all of this, regulators got this dual mandate to try and balance all of these issues. If I move to industrial sector, you can read industrial and mining, we are aware of, we constantly talk to our customers, we're aware of what's being said there. We had a lot of discussions and we supported, and as you know, the short-term framework was approved by Department of Energy with clear criteria in it. The short-term framework is specifically focused on to retain sales, customers who are in distress, who are closing down, and would not be able to actually continue because of various factors. It's targeted at large industrials and then the qualifying customers, and it sells, it gives prices lower that they pay, but above the fixed cost component. Because the choice you have is either you lose that sale completely and you move into the left spiral, or you keep them going and above the fixed cost, so at least make a contribution to the fixed cost, but then you have some income on the variable cost as well. And it's only for a period of 24 months. And then as the short-term framework says, and I think it summarizes well, incentive pricing should not apply to energy that with the Nersa's opinion have been consumed in the absence of the framework. So it's very specific, very concise. There were two of these agreements concluded during last year. Silicon smelters and supply, as you know, in the silicon smelter, we look at for the year roughly a projection of about 650 gigawatt hours, which we would not have had because silicon smelter had already closed down. So 650 gigawatts we would not have had. The other one is Sublime. It took quite a long time to get Sublime approved, but in the last 6 months that since October they are actually in operation. They did not close down, but they were on the verge of closing down, and they are consuming around 8. So for the year, we talk about roughly 70 gigawatt hours above what had been used at the time that the agreement started. There are about 5 other, you've asked the question about where we are, about 5 other customers that applied. We are really analyzing all the financial efforts because as the STF clearly indicated are very strict criteria, and the independent financial analysis take quite a time. And it's very critical to understand that because that's the first hurdle. Are they in distress? Are they going to close down or not? And it's a very difficult decision to make. And there was a question around these metals. Yes, it is with Eskom, but it is going through the governance process at this stage for a decision. It's not only there that Eskom focus, we also look at all the other tariff structures. You've asked what are we doing around that. Certain structural changes are not part of this submission, but we have a retail tariff plan that's being developed at the moment that will come and follow the normal Nersa public consultation process as we move on with it. But very important there is to note, again, it was very often there's a thinking that we can structure tariffs and provide incentives, but in many cases incentives mean there's a reduction in revenue. And in the MYPD process, Eskom gets an amount of revenue allowed by Nersa, which is efficient and prudent, which we need to run efficiently. And we have to recover that money. So all we can do within the tariffs is find a tariff that suits the operations of the customers, but in the end still recover the money that Nersa has approved us so that we can remain financially stable. We've looked at a lot of the happenings, what's happening out in the markets out there. You've seen what's happening. I'm not going to spend time on this. Just important here is to see that there's a lot of solutions that are identified that needs to be looked at as we move on with our retail tariff plan. This is also very important because in South Africa, in our current operation, you've seen the system of presentation. So we need to set out signals because pricing intelligence is your signal to set out to support your system operator to also deal with their challenges. There are 2 different profiles, one a winter and a summer profile. This one is specifically a winter profile where there are very high demands in the evening. The summer profile is very flat, which is got other anomalies because now you need to provide constantly a load while you also have to maintain your power stations. In this case, you can see, and I know it's not intended to try to do anything, it's just to prove a point. The The impact of PV and solar is during the day. So just to try and show the impact of that and as it will grow over the years. So clearly when they come in, Eskom must use them, we must purchase electricity from them, they will reduce that line there and that role will be created. So what we sit with is a steep increase in the morning, a very low night minimum, steep increase in the morning peak, afternoon low, and even faster evening peak pickup, and then a very high evening peak, particularly in winter, and that's not impacted by the PV. So we need to reduce the ramp-up rate in evening with longer peak periods, so that we need to do. I'm not going to go into detail, this is just to show you what is currently in our retail plan that we're working at, because we've got a reference to two of them. The one is the changes in time of use, and I'll give some more information on that. The other one specifically, the home power, time of use, and the net metering tariff. I'm not going to go into the others because we have questions around them at the previous meetings. First of all, the time of use changes. About 80% of Eskom sales are on time of use, of revenue. The revenue perspective is on time of use, not customer numbers. And we are busy changing it because of the changes of the dynamics in the industry. So what we do is, but what the system operators requested us is that we shouldn't move too suddenly because it can impact the stability of the system operator. So what we're proposing as a start off with is a change in the time of use hours, a reduction of an hour in the morning because that's not too difficult for them, and then an increase in the peak hours in the evening. And the second one is a change in the time of use prices. Winter rates reduced, we change it, we now reduce it to a 1:6 ratio. Now that you can't go too low there either because you still need to send out a signal for customers not to use electricity in the peak hours. But I think again, I just want to emphasize, because we've heard customers say we need to reduce the winter peaks, it's too high. But they also want us to reduce the off-peak hours. And then they are high load factor customers. So it doesn't matter what the price is, it will not impact it because they are running at a high load factor. So it's very difficult environments, we need to find the balance. But I want to mention here, the expectation is when you reduce the winter peak, they can save. And it's maybe not the same because other time periods prices will then increase. The second area of vulnerability is the second one is the time of use tariff for home light. We are bringing it in there. That is the biggest contributor of peak demand, as was mentioned as well in some of the hearings. So we need to put something in place there. So we are introducing the time of use tariff for our residential customers. But I think what is critical to understand here as well, Eskom's the type of customers that we have. We have just over 6 million customers, but around almost the 6 million customers are home light 20 and customers on lifeline tariffs who actually uses 100 kilowatt hour per month with prepayment meters. Eskom on its own has only around 400,000 customers that you can impact with the time of use tariff. So the big opportunity there is within the municipalities, but we believe that we should also show our commitment to that, and that's why we are bringing it into place. So we have to do that also to cater for the SCGs that will come in later on in terms of that. There was an issue about energy intensive users tariff. Again, as I said, that will only support people because they run high load factor customers anyway. We can reduce it by any means. And the thinking was to look at the amount of subsidies that they pay. But again, if somebody pays less, somebody else will pick it up. Whether it's government, whether it's other customers, that becomes the big challenge. I'm not going to spend more time on those things. When I get to the second area of your vulnerable sectors, at this stage they are supported. First of all, the first sector was the guys that are actually paying the cross subsidies. So on top of suffering the competition internationally, they are carrying a burden of paying cross subsidies to other customers within the tariff structures. These are the customers who receive it, who also, we've heard what they say they battle. And And the two areas there is the agricultural sector and the residential sector. Agricultural sector, one of the big issues was mentioned during this period is the fact that the price increase is an average price increase. But the RCA clearly specified that the average increase is applied to all the different tariff charges. So the increases there is on all of the different, including the rental components, which should actually be a different measure used. And there's already a visible low voltage subsidy from large customers. There was an issue around connection charges. Just want to clearly state that. There are two ways in which Eskom get money in from networks. It's a connection charge, which is there for the capital, and then there's an equity and use of system charge. And maybe an easier way to explain is this. If there is a new connection there, that cost of connection is the dedicated cost for that customer to connect to that. That's the capital portion that these days Eskom charge cash up front, municipalities charge cash up front, and the past Eskom has allowed given customers a loan over 25 years. The second one is the shared cost, the deeper cost, so that one customer don't have to pay for him connected to the customers, but everybody share that increase because everybody's going to benefit from it. Then the time of use tariffs, so the deep charges, as well as a portion of the capital component, are even recovered in the use of system charges. And that is regulated, Nersa approves them and all of that. And that capital that we receive from customers, just to remind you of Friday's presentation, where that slide was shown, that at the bottom, the green, when assets were paid for, Eskom takes it out of the regulated asset base. Then there was a question around, is there support for farmers in distress? Yes, it is. There's the policy, it's force majeure. It's got also specific clauses, so it is in place for farmers there. The last section is the residential sector.
Mr. Conrad, Eskom has already taken 1 hour 10 minutes.
Okay.
Its presentation. If you could try and
just end off. You can see there that's the cost and revenue. I think it's important to understand the subsidies because there's a misconception that Eskom might have an amount that we can use for subsidy. We don't. We must recover income and revenue. So there is a cost for each of the tariffs. That is, so some pay a subsidy, other get a contribution. That is the cost subsidy amounts, which you can study. A lot is already being done for the affordability of low-income households. The electrification program, free basic electricity, the subsidization of the Eskom tariffs, and then also the inclining block rate, although Eskom supports the comments that were made, it's not supportive these days. When you talk about cross subsidies, people say, yeah, but the residential customers actually are subsidizing industrial customers because they look at the price of electricity. When you talk about subsidies, you have to look at the price and the cost of supply. And you can clearly see there for our lifeline tariff, our 20 amp, which is 90% usage is within block 1. The cost is R1.57. Well, the average price for that block in the 350 kilowatt hour area is 99 cents, and then you see this, clearly the subsidy there. With the 15% increase, the 50 kilowatt hour block will only pay R7 a month more. And so it goes up as is shown in that slide. So the question is, how can it be protected? It has to be done within all the constraints I've explained there. We also feel that it's very important that government also play an important role in terms of providing direction on how that should be done. And what Nersa has done in the past is they have limited the increase in the 2 blocks to the lifeline tariff in the past, which can again be considered. And because of that, Eskom cannot make that decision. It's not in our mandate. I've provided scenarios there that if you reduce the price from the 15%, you reduce nothing, you will see what the impact is. Then if they only see a 1% lower increase, 2.4% lower increase, as was the previous decision by Nersa, or if they see a 10% increase, and that 10% increase is around the CPI, then you'll see the impact there. But that has, on the other side, an impact on the large industrial customers, and their contribution to the affordability subsidy increases by around 1.17%. if you go for the full impact. There you can see the impact on the customers. Just to conclude, we've given you now an overview that Eskom need to move towards cost effectiveness. Yes, there are vulnerable sections we need to do it. Eskom on its own can't do it because we have to be financially sustainable. So Eskom cannot do anything around that. We can try and support and help and give inputs. But it's very, very important now that government also plays a role to integrate and find a way of how we can do that. That we develop a national cross-subsidy framework, identifying who should pay and who should receive. Because currently it is growing in an ad hoc basis, which is not supporting the national economic policy in South Africa. Thank you, Chair. I hand over to the President.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nersa, as I indicated earlier. I just want to go through the economics, and I'm mindful of time as well, to go rather rapidly on this. And just to lay a little bit of a background of where we were as a country, where we are now, and where we are likely to be moving to in the near future. The point that I want to make is that if you look at the sectors that are traditionally the energy-hungry ones, your mining, your manufacturing, and your manufacturing-related commercial sectors. These sectors are getting smaller and smaller as the economy progresses. So we are growing more so in the tertiary components of our economies. You see that, if we take that component as an example there, you see how we have been declining over time as a share. Look at manufacturing as a share of our overall GDP, that they are getting smaller and smaller. So the argument here is that we are growing more in the tertiary sectors, we are growing more in sectors that are less energy hungry than before. However, if you look at the long-term trend, there's something that is quite clear here, that there is a strong correlation between energy sales and GDP growth. And that is a function of where our economy comes from. But due to the dynamic that I indicated to you earlier here, you would expect that as the year progresses, and particularly during the latter years, that the correlation factor diminishes somewhat. Because as I mentioned, the economy is growing faster in sections and in components than in sectors that are not as hungry energy-wise. So there is a decoupling that is taking place there. Nevertheless, you can see that GDP growth remains a key driver of what happens on the sales front. So if the sector is contracting, you would expect that to reflect on the energy sales or electricity sales of that particular sector. Just a recap to say where we are, you will notice that a significant chunk of our sales nonetheless remains in the mining and commercial related manufacturing-related sectors. Talking about at least 60% of the sales overall in South Africa, not per customer category, but per sector. To see where do our sales go to. With that said, the point that has been made before and that we want to make here is that the sectors that are energy intensive, that are buying a lot of our electricity, are the sectors that are getting smaller as a share of our overall GDP composition, but yet they are highly intensive, they use a lot of energy units per unit of production. So you look at mining, for an example, mining consumes a lot of energy per unit of output compared to retail and finance. The retail and finance sector might be growing, might be a growth area in our economy, but per extra unit of GDP growth or per extra unit of gross value added, the finance sector consumes far less than what the mining sector does. So that's the first dynamic that comes into play there, that is well articulated there. To say the electricity sector is a bit of a challenge that is developing here long term, that the economy is growing much faster in sectors that are not energy hungry. That is an important piece. And that follows here, the graph, this graph, what articulated looks at the energy intensity overall from the South African economy. You can see as the economy transitions to say now sectors that are what tertiary sectors in essence, as they become more dominant in our economy, that the overall units of energy that we use as an economy as a whole, per unit of output, the aggregated unit of output is declining. So our energy intensity is reducing. We are no longer, as an economy at the macro level, we are no longer requiring a higher amount of energy to produce the similar amount of than what we did before. Just as an indication to say here, you see this jump that we saw here from over here and all the way up there, that did not happen by chance. That was a government policy initiative. Some of you would recall we had the 1992 price pact where electricity prices were set at sub-inflation levels, and that created a subsidy into the economy, an incentive into the economy to become more energy intensive. That had their desired objectives, but on the downside is that we had more usage of electricity than, quite frankly, than our peers and even other countries which are at that developmental stage. Over time, as initiatives from ESCOM in terms of demand side management and as well in fact the price, the cumulative impact of the price then became an incentive into the economy for us to start using less energy. And as I mentioned, the dynamics that were developing there in terms of sections that were growing, so you start to see this trend over here, and that is likely to continue. You've seen this graph before, that's just an articulation of where the price is compared to our African peers. I'll just move to the next one that compares us to mostly with some of our European counterparts. Firstly, this was done in 2016, so the 2015 prices. If you look at that, where you see South Africa to be at 8.5 US cents, that the exchange rate that we used, there was a question that was asked at some point, the exchange rate that was used for this study at that time was 12 rand 25 to the dollar. So that is where you see the price to be at on South Africa. But the point that we want to make there, that is a South Africa price. The ESCOM price itself, the ESCOM average price at that time was there. So, firstly, it articulates the difference between what the retail price at the municipal level, which we then push the aggregate price for the country, to what is the average ESCOM price. You see there's about a 25% difference there. That's the first issue I think that will have to be, that will jump out to you there. An argument was made to say, but what happens if the exchange rate was materially stronger than what the rate was at that time? So even if you look at that, look at the 8.5 cents US cents, even if we were to take it, say, I said it was at 12.25, maybe to say let's use a 10 rate exchange rate, you can see that we would actually be somewhere here in terms of what the new price would be. But that would have been a 2013 exchange rate, so much 3 years earlier. So to me, it does not necessarily follow that you can choose any exchange rate and plug it there and say the real cost that you are realizing at a particular time, how do you convert it? You need to use the exchange rate that prevailed at that particular time. That is the best thing that you can do for yourself. But even if we were to allow that kind of scenario, even if we were to allow that kind of stretch, so to speak, you can see that the average price would still be relatively low comparatively speaking. And even then, if you actually take the ESCOM price, that would be even much better. What we did here, in terms of this, trying to assess the impact of a 15% and a 19% tariff increase over time, we have actually built 3 key scenarios. So, assuming these costs are beneficial. There are only three ways that the cost can be recovered. One, you can do it through a tariff, you can do it through a combination of tariff and borrowings, or you can do it through a combination of the tariff and some form of injection, liquidity injection, government assistance, or a bailout if you want. So those are the three main scenarios that we have. You can see what we came up there is that if you look at the base scenario, which was our 8% and plus debt, if you look at it, we take that as a base scenario, and then we put in the 13% tariff increase plus debt, there is a deviation of 0.1% on your GDP growth over the projected period. So the tariff increase there would actually have a dampening effect on GDP outcome by 0.1% percentage point over the projected period. One thing that comes out quite clearly there is that the higher the tariff increase, the more negative the consequence. That follows. A higher tariff increase will always be less preferable to a lower tariff increase. But what the models indicate to us is that even if you have a lower tariff increase, you must acknowledge that you will have to get to recover the shortfall, the revenue shortfall somewhere. So if we assume that we're going to get that from the state and the government is going to put in the balancing, to supply the balancing amount, that the government has to do it in one or two ways. So as I said, to increase rates, or is going to spend less somewhere else. If you put in an assumption of an increase in taxes, then we find out, and that's that scenario there, that we find out that actually if you fund ESCO by having lower tariffs and you say you're going to cover that shortfall by raising taxes, that has an even more adverse effect on GDP growth than if you were to have a tariff increase. So what message are we taking out here? We say, yes, a lower tariff increase is better than a higher tariff increase. But the costs have to be carried by someone somewhere. If the customer doesn't pay, then the taxpayer won't pay. If the taxpayer pays, that sort of funding mechanism has a more negative impact on your GDP outcome than if directly the customer was paying. The other element that we looked at is on debt. To say, but what happens if we, instead of obtaining this tariff, this is compensated by debt? Well, my colleagues, my non-elected colleagues have come here before and explained that the debt level at ESCOM has surpassed relevant efficient levels. What we need to think of a debt is nothing more than an accrued tariff increase. At some point, if you have high levels of debt, at some point your tariff has to adjust in order to support that high levels of borrowings. A question may be asked to say, but how did ESCOM attain that high levels of borrowings without the supporting level of tariff? Well, the truth is because we had a rich angle. A rich angle in the form of government that gave us guaranteed, and that said to the lenders that we will be able to make good on ESCOM's borrowings should ESCOM not be able to pay back. We have reached levels now, you can see by the credit rating metrics, we have reached levels now where the lenders are actually asking or questioning the bona fides of the government itself. So borrowings is not really much of a way out at this point. We took this from the National Treasury to indicate what National Treasury's projections are in as far as an analysis of our tariff application is. They also, interestingly, at 15%, they think that...
Mr. Johnson, I think we have exhausted. Yes, I think there's a lot of duplication as well on the points presented by ESCOM. We've heard about your arguments on the debt and the causes, and also some issues around price elasticity, and also ESCOM submission on sales, how you forecast the growth, the potential growth in the market. So I think most of them are revolving around that. So if you can limit the duplication.
I'll quickly jump, Chair, in the interest of time, to to what our outlook is on the elasticity coefficients and I'll just on the price elasticity coefficient on the key sectors. That we have observed that elasticity coefficients are rising. We accept that, but we still view the electricity sector to be price, the demand in the electricity sector to be inelastic. That is not to say that there will not be a response in price adjustment. We just took the liberty of this metric and we put it in for the manufacturing sector to say what we are saying is that a real price increase of 10%, at a 0% GDP growth, at a 0% growth level in this particular sector would result in that kind of reduction in sales. So it is always important that these things work in tandem. The price elasticity and the income elasticity work in tandem. They happen at the same time. So the main driver in our view remains output. The main driver of consumption remains the level of output. So when we look at the negative consequences of price increase, we must also look at the consequences of an increase in output or in activity levels in those particular sectors. It is always safer, it is prudent to read these two competing elements in tandem. In conclusion, Chair, and it took me 16 minutes of it. In conclusion, Chair, that we acknowledge that the price increase in this instance is always not a desirable thing. A price increase has a negative consequence. Particularly a higher price increase has a negative consequence than a lower price increase. But that being the case, it is our submission that at this stage that the tariff has to be cost reflective so that the utility can be self-sufficient going forward. Otherwise, the cost of having that of compromising on the sustenance of the utility will be much higher than the cost or the negative impact of a tariff increase. I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chairperson, thanks for your indulgence. We're ready for questions.
Okay, thank you. The members, if you could ask for questions of clarity, especially on this revised presentation from ESCOM, Mr. Chris Foley.
Thanks, Chair. Okay, it was a very long presentation, so just starting with the first one, which is on the price path. So I had a question of clarity, and I don't know the slide numbers now because there's so many slides. But there was a number of slides, Dion, which you presented. We've got the MYPD 2 price path as well as the MYPD 3. So in other words, those prices will have ended up within what you're calling this upper and lower limit that Nersa modeled. My question is, was that based on the actual application? In other words, the volumes, etc., that you had presented in those applications, and how would that have changed based on what the actual sales were? Because obviously this other side you didn't present was the revenue requirement, and if you didn't achieve the sales based on that price that you were going to get to, you would have needed to make it higher. So just can you clarify for us, would that have then changed that scenario? And then are you also saying that if either MYPD 2 or MYPD 3 had been approved as applied for, okay, that going forward today you would have been applying for purely an inflation increase? Okay, and then the next section was the sales forecast. Okay, so I think one of my questions is, I must say I was quite disappointed with this section, but you know, one of the statements I think you made was that your accuracy is less than 1% compared to budget. I'm not quite sure what that meant, but I've got kind of an overall question for you is, and I asked this question, I think it was at the last set, okay, was, So even if you look at RCA year 5, MYPD 3, what were the sales down was about 15% from what was applied for. Now, what you presented to us today was really a business as usual. It says, well, we're doing this, it's working well, we feel we're quite accurate, there's lots of stuff we can't control. My question was, what is it that you're doing differently that's going to result in a different outcome? Especially now that you have an opportunity to present some changes closer to the time of the decision. And then so, if you are able to say that your processes are so good and you're going to come in within a certain percentage, then surely you must put your head on the block and bite the bullet for anything outside of that. So if you say you can come within 5%, and not just come and tell us everything is outside of your control. So the other one was, I really don't agree with this thing of saying, I look at these two graphs in terms of the sales increase, the sales versus the prices, and there's no correlation. It's evident. What does evident mean? You haven't shown us any analysis there that shows that. Where's the statistical analysis, etc., that you've based that on? Because the other side of the coin is looking at what is the actual price that so I just need to come back with something on that. So you didn't. So I just think for me, it is concerning that there's a bit of arrogance displayed around your process for sales forecasting, saying, look, you don't believe there's anything really wrong there, but you've got it so wrong in the past 5 or even 10 years. Just on the affordability section, Dion, my question is, if the STF, this short-term framework is so important, and we think it is quite because of industries, etc., that are in duress, and you're telling us that you've got 500 applications on the table, the question I have is, what is the resourcing that has been applied to those? Because from what we've heard in some of the other sessions, it's taking a long time to get through these. Surely if this was a priority, and we'd like to hear that then from you, has the team been working on this, been increased in any way to try to fast track those applications through the governance process? Because I don't think we've seen that increase on our side. And then just the other question I have is, so this cross-subsidy framework that is really a national government competence, does ESCOM have a proposal on that? Because if you're saying is that it's necessary to look at it, do you have a proposal yourself that you've developed? And then just a comment from me is, so, if you, I think it was slide 53, so if your tariff incentive reduces your revenue slightly, you're either going to save consumption that would have been lost, or you're going to increase the consumption. And surely that should then offset the effect of that particular loss in income. And then my last comment on the price and income elasticity portion. A lot of your data is like 2012, 2015, even before. To me, we know statistics, that kind of data, where's the up-to-date data? If you're asking us to rely on the numbers you've given us, where's the stuff that's recent? A lot of this stuff from 2012, etc., I think you can actually leave those slides out, because to me that wasted our time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Stutt.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to ESCOM. If I probably can start with the projected price part. Now, so in slide 15, you called the World Bank study and the fact that there are certain hidden costs in your tariff. But then if you look at what is contained, some of the elements that are contained there, there is about 10% of overstaffing. Now, you disputed the World Bank study in terms of the calculations regarding staffing. So would you then agree that this particular estimate here is actually it's actually overestimated? If we take your argument that the World Bank study actually miscalculated in terms of your productivity, in terms of staffing levels and the benchmark that was done. Which also brings the other question to say that the World Bank says that you should comfortably be at the upper boundary level of the price part. But again, if you disputed that section of the World Bank study, why then are you placing reliance on the price part that the World Bank is estimating for Scotland? Secondly, would you agree that the regulator is not necessarily bound by the price part that was determined in MYPD 1, 2, and 3, that each decision actually determines its own price part, and therefore we cannot rely on the price part that was determined in the previous decision. Now, you also indicate that the main cause of the price increase is not increasing costs on your side, but it's because you are phasing out the price subsidy and trying to get to cost reflectivity. But now, as we stand here today, are you in a position to indicate to us what a cost reflective price would be? Because you indicated to us that your costs actually began to escalate at the beginning of the new build program. And we know that there have been challenges from a cost perspective with regard to that program. And as a regulator, we need to be compensating you for prudently acquired costs. But then you are saying that it should be, the reason for the price increase is because you're trying to reach cost reflective tariffs. But as we sit here today, we don't know what that cost reflective tariff is. Are you in a position to expand more on what you would regard as a cost reflective price? When it comes to the sales forecast, firstly, how do you explain, and you're making the point that there is no correlation between tariff adjustment and sales. Now, how do you then explain the growing trend towards special pricing arrangements? How do you also explain the growing trend with respect to self-generation? Now, obviously, we all know that the purpose of these hearings is to gather evidence that will assist the regulator in making an informed decision. And throughout these hearings, we've heard from various groupings. We've heard from agriculture, we've heard from mining, we've heard from manufacturing, we've heard from residential customers. And all of them are saying, if there is a 15% tariff increase, this is going to cause difficulties. Some indicating that they might have to close down, others indicating they will have to reduce production and so forth and so on. But you are saying to us, your sales forecast says there is no correlation between a tariff adjustment and sales. And that's a bit difficult for us to really understand where you're coming from. Now, we asked, for instance, I think it was the mining and the agricultural people and the business chambers in Mpumalanga, whether they participated previously in your customer satisfaction surveys, and they indicated not. And then part of the exercise that you do when you do your sales forecast is actually talking to the various customer groupings. I think what will assist probably is for us to have access to those validation or what you call those validation sessions that you have, the one-on-ones that you have with your various customers, to get an indication of what is it that they are saying to you. Because it's one thing to do a forecast, it's another thing to speak or to talk one-on-one with your customers. So I'll request that perhaps you give us access to that information that is coming out of your one-on-one validation sessions with your customers. But it's a bit difficult to accept that there's no correlation really between sales and tariff adjustment. When it comes to the macroeconomic projections, so slide 81 shows the correlation between GDP growth and your sales. But your sales actually grow at a much slower rate than GDP growth. And I think it will be important to actually reflect that in your revised sales forecast. Because it's one thing to say that there's a correlation between GDP and sales growth. Whereas if you look at it, actually the graph shows that your sales grow at a much, much slower rate than GDP. And I think we would want to see that in your revised figures. You also spoke about supply side constraints as the main driver contributing to slower sales growth, but you have not said anything about demand side constraints. And as I've indicated throughout the hearings, we've had evidence indicating that demand is actually falling. So I think we would also want to have some kind of analysis from your side, from a demand side perspective, regardless of what that analysis says. But I think it's important when you do your sales, or rather when you look at your forecast, to also look at it from a demand side perspective. And you maintain your view that demand is inelastic. I think again it will be important for us to get probably the source data that you have relied on to come to that conclusion that you still maintain that demand is inelastic for electricity. Because what we are hearing actually contradicts what you are saying. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sponder. Mr. Nkisi. Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to all the ESCOM presenters. We've been through the hearings in Cape Town up to here today, and I'm kind of sometimes confused looking at the fact that in the opening of these public hearings, there was an apology by the CEO, but what has transpired throughout is that there was no need for that apology when I look at it. And I take it that these hearings, they provide a platform to get more information, specific information that will help us in terms of assessing what we're doing, but at the same time assist the public to understand what is really happening. And I think that the sentiments around the presentation of this of the information has already been raised in other places in terms of it coming across and being well understood, especially in the midst of the contradictions that we encounter when we're looking at this. Also, I'm dealing with an entity here that has also been trying to say to people, don't buy my product, but at the same time, they decry the lower sales. All such things. But zooming to the questions of, presentations of today, is that in the presentation, I kind of, when we look at the upper and the lower boundary set for the range, it appeared as if there is some sense of entitlement in terms of the presentation that you are entitled to be within that range in terms of the future price path. And what I'm a bit confused about is that if you look at that, each and every decision that had been taken there, we might not have indicated the price path per se going forward, but I take it that each and every decision was based on a sound reason, and therefore a new price path accompanied each decision, and hence ESCOM ought to have then also borne that in mind and be able to translate or change the price path accordingly.